Hi everybody, welcome to the Brand Muse interview series for YouTube and for the Brand Design Masters podcast. I'm here with Ben Amos. Ben is the CEO, let's say, of Engage Video Marketing, an agency that helps companies utilize video to their best advantage in business. And Ben is also a speaker at the Social Media Marketing World Conference this year. We are in San Diego. We're right inside the convention center. You will hear forklifts and things moving around, but that's the pleasure of doing things live. So welcome, Ben. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Phil. Yeah, excited to be here and share.
Just before we came live, you were talking about the story of how you got this speaking gig at Social Media Marketing World. And if you're listening and you don't know about Social Media Marketing World, it is probably the most popular and influential social media conferences in the United States. And to get a speaking gig here is a coup. It's a very prestigious thing to get. So Ben got a speaking gig here, and he was telling me the story of how he kind of made that come about through networking activity, and I thought it would be great if we just kicked off sharing that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. First of all, apologies for my voice, because there's a lot of networking that happens here at this event, and last night was a bit loud. So, but yeah, look, for me, I've been building my brand around my personal brand for a number of years, and part of that is podcasting. And so, after 2.5 years of podcasting, you kind of build up a bit of a following, bit of a back catalogue of content, I guess. And it was off the back of my podcast that I kind of reached out to Mike Stelzner, who's the CEO of Social Media Examiner, and it was following being at the event here last year and very briefly meeting Mike and hearing some insight from him about how to get noticed on the radar, I guess, for this conference. Is just about building relationships. And so off the back of my podcast, I reached out to Mike directly through Instagram and asked if I could in any way support their, it was called a Video Marketing Summit that they had last year. It was an online summit. And so I reached out and said, can I somehow share Video Marketing Summit with my audience and my podcast? And he reached back to me and said, we're pretty busy right now, kind of got a bit blanked, I guess. But he said, hey, I'll listen to your podcast. And I was like, cool, well, that's something anyway. He's going to listen to my podcast. He got back to me pretty quickly after that and said, I've listened to your podcast and I'd love to come on your show and be interviewed on your show. So I said yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Which was a great guest for my podcast, and have Mike Stelzner from Social Media Examiner. He came on my show and shared a bit more about Social Media Examiner's video strategy, which was a great episode, and I thought that was awesome. It's the end of it. At the end of recording that episode, though, he got to asking a bit more about what I do and what I teach about, and then he basically invited me on his show. So I went on the Social Media Examiner podcast not long after that, and I guess I did okay on that, because then he asked me to come and teach what I talked about at the conference, at the podcast there, at the conference. So
that's
yeah,
amazing.
it's a bit of a strange circumstance, but I'm excited to be here.
And Social Media Marketing World was making a push to actually become much more involved in marketing their conference via video. So the fact that is your agency's specialty, is teaching companies how to do that, it seemed like number one, you recognized the fact that they were doing what you were really great at, and that you made that connection to say, I see that you're making this push, this is what I do, and you made that connection through recognizing what they were doing. And then that just pushed it all forward.
Absolutely. I think it was a combination of events and circumstances, and anyone who's followed Social Media Examiner have seen that they've got a real focus on video at the moment, and particularly over the last couple of years have really been focused on video for their own brand. And I was seeing what they were doing, and recognizing that, and recognizing their interest in it, and also recognizing that I could have some input in that potentially. I didn't know how that conversation would happen, but through the podcast interviews that I did with Mike, we had some of that conversation.
Right.
And I think he recognized the value that conversation was providing him and his brand, which I guess just validated the content I was sharing with him. And yeah, it was a good circumstance that kind of led to that. Yeah.
And you obviously were showing him that you knew what you were talking about.
I guess so, right? Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that you probably gave him some pointers, because there might be stuff that they were missing that you know how to do. One of the things I think is also interesting about that is that it was the sharing of him coming on your podcast, then you're going on his podcast, and then this, sometimes I call it the social media mafia. It's like we expose each other to our own audiences, right?
Yeah.
So that one of your ways of growing your influence is to make connections, network with people who have an audience, and see if you can expose yourself to their audience. And then, but the important part of having some sort of a platform of your own, whether that's a blog or a YouTube channel or a podcast, something like that, is that you then have a platform that you can expose them to your audience. So it's a reciprocal relationship that really helps broaden your network in a deep way, right? Rather than kind of a surface, I'll retweet your tweet, or I'll share your LinkedIn post or something like that. It's more significant.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk a little bit about what you're going to talk about here at Social Media Marketing World.
Sure, yeah. So what I'm sharing here is all about video strategy. So exactly what we're talking about just then is the idea of really understanding as a business, as a brand, if you're going to be investing in video, ensuring that you're using the right video in the right way at the right time, that's going to actually move the right customer to take the right action. That's a lot of rights in there, right?
Yeah,
right. But that's
what Australian, if you can't tell. There's a lot of rights.
Yeah, but that's what it's all about. If you're going to be investing and doing video, you need to have a strategy, because there's so much noise out there online, right? And if you're just creating video for the sake of video, chances are it's just being swallowed up by that noise. Potentially, even if your audience is seeing it, they're not taking the right action and actually making a difference in your business. And that's where video can often really fail, is people get excited, they create video, and they get it out there and they stick it up everywhere, and then they count how many views they've got, and they've got like 34 views or something, right? And it's like
a lot of effort.
A lot of effort for nothing, right? And then they think, well, video doesn't work. And I see that time and time again. And that's my mission, is to change that, I guess, is because I really feel that if there's a bit of thought put behind it, a bit of marketing strategy behind video, which makes sense. In business, we understand the importance of thinking strategically about our next move in business, but people don't do that deliberately with their marketing strategy. Particularly, I see, not with their video strategy, because it's like the new bright and shiny object. People just, they just want to make content, get it out there.
It's the most intimidating shiny object, though, because a lot of people hesitate on video because there's so much that goes into it, from the technology to the lighting to the sound to the content to the fact that people are afraid to put their faces on camera. What's your recommendation to people who are thinking about possibly getting into video? Companies, corporations, personal brands who are hesitating because they just are afraid to take that leap?
Well, I think the first thing is to recognize that the reason why video is so popular these days is because attention is on video. The stats are crazy. I think Cisco reporting that 82% of all internet traffic in 2020 is going to be video, right? And 70% of marketers this year are going to invest more in video. So if you're a marketer or you're marketing your business, you're not alone in thinking that video is where you need to be focusing your time and attention. And if you're hesitant in kind of taking the leap and getting started, just recognize that video is just another method of communication, right? It just happens to be right now the most effective method of communication that combines both audio and video, which allows people to retrieve a message or receive a message much more quickly, right? And much more quickly than even visuals alone or audio alone, right? And the other reason why attention is on video is because video is the kind of medium that people want to consume through. People would much prefer to watch a video than to read a page of text, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing video right now as well as audio podcast. So attention's on video, but it also means that there's a lot of people creating video, right? And that's where I feel that idea of having a strategy behind your video is so important, because just doing video is not enough.
Yeah.
Because it'll end up just getting lost in the noise.
When you're just starting off, though, and you said, companies make that foray into video, they get a low number of views, then they, throw up their hands and say, oh, it's never going to happen. What's the strategy when you're starting out, when you're still, not getting the views, and you have to have fortitude to kind of keep going? What are some of the unlocks there for in terms of, getting that sort of recognition or getting your video out there so you will get more views, or you start to kind of get a little traction with video, I guess, at the beginning?
Sure. I think it's about a mindset shift or a paradigm shift between, are you creating the video for you,
right,
in order to push your message out, or are you creating video for your audience in order for them to receive something that they value, right? And that's an important recognition of
Well,
shift.
and you kind of got to do both to an extent, right? Because you are promoting your goods and services. By the same token, you want to, it's got to be 80% giving value, right? At least.
I think it's about recognizing that even just generally in business, why we exist in business is to serve others, right?
Right.
And if we don't serve others, then they're not going to pay us. It's as simple as that.
Right.
Right. If we don't have something that they value, then there's not going to be a value exchange, so there's no business, right? And it's the same with marketing of any sort. It's the same with video. And so many people are just focused on creating video to push their message out. Instead, you need to think about creating video to, I guess, bring your message into someone, right? So thinking about your audience first is critical. And if you can recognize and do the research and understand what your audience wants, what are they struggling with? What pain do they feel that you can fix, that you can help with? And create content based on that, so from that angle.
Right.
At its foundation, a good video strategy starts with your audience in that way. So if you're struggling to kind of get traction or get views, or you're doing video and you're feeling like no one's listening, the first thing I think is to pull it back and think, am I creating the video that my audience actually wants? Right? And sometimes it's hard to know that. You have to do your research. You sometimes just have to start making content as well and see
test.
what resonates, right?
Yeah.
And recognize that it's a long game in many cases. But if you start by thinking, how is this serving my audience? What value am I providing? Then that's the best place to start. And your audience will come, as long as you're getting it out there in the right way and using the distribution platforms in the right way, then your audience will come if you're providing value.
I think that's a really, really good point in terms of the fact that video is a long game. Any kind of social media marketing really is a long game because you have to build an audience over a period of time. But the one thing that I thought that you said that I think is really key is that in order to, you have to put out a range to a certain extent of content around how you're serving people, because you need to push the boundaries of what you're offering in order to find out what's resonating. Because you may find out one certain kind of video or one certain kind of topic is really getting the eyeballs, right? And others are kind of falling flat. And then you have to chase and expand on the things that are working. But in order to kind of get a read on that, you have to put out a range of content before you get that sort of feedback. And then you have to be paying really close attention to your analytics, which a lot of people don't, I think.
Yeah, that's right. And I think putting out that range of content, I think, is important. But like you say, measuring the analytics in the right way is important as well. But I think if you don't put some thought first to what that range of content will be, and base it on your audience first, then potentially you're just going to be creating content for no one, right? And I see this so often as people start creating video content when they haven't put that kind of thought behind how they're going to serve their audience, and they put a lot of effort into it. They kind of run themselves to the ground and they just think it's not worth it, and then they give up, right? But I think if you put that shift in place first and you're thinking about how is this serving my audience, then you're doing it for someone else, right? And when you're doing something for someone else, there's that kind of not obligation, but there's that feeling of reciprocity that comes into play, which I think is important there. So yeah, I think get content out there, but ensure that you're knowing who you're doing it for.
So how are you using video for your own company? And number one, do you separate your content of your personal brand, which is the promotion of Ben Amos as an expert in video marketing.
Yeah.
And then you have an agency.
I have an agency in Australia called Innovate Media.
Innovate Media,
And Engage
sorry.
Video Marketing is more
under
of the,
that.
yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but you have, the Ben Amos brand that got you the speaking gig.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have, content that I'm sure is maybe more narrowly focused to drive traffic to your agency work.
Yeah.
Do you separate them that way in your thinking, or is it all kind of one big push?
Yeah, so for me, like my content creation is more around building that engaged video marketing brand, building my personal brand, which then feeds into my agency. So for agency owners listening or watching, it's kind of power of a personal brand behind your agency, I think is very powerful. Because at the end of the day, if you can position yourself or your team as experts in what they do, recognized experts in what they do, then people are going to gravitate towards your agency, right? So absolutely, the building of my personal brand and speaking and podcasting and content creation, that sort of stuff, has fed into the success of my agency. There is that other side as well of kind of building other monetization streams through speaking and through podcasts, through course creation, which I'm exploring as well, that may not fit with other businesses and agencies out there if that's not the direction that they're going. Mm-hmm. But I think creating content is a personal thing, right? I think whether you're creating video content for your brand or for your agency, and whether it be branded about your agency, I think it's still a personal branding approach, because people want to connect with the people within a brand, right? Yeah. And by creating content, it's a personal thing, right? You're putting yourself out there.
So it's a halo effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
You are the face, or anyone in your team also appears as the face, but then it becomes this halo effect of, wow, they really are giving me value. I call it subliminal reciprocity.
Yeah.
You have developed, you've given them value again and again and again, and then they feel like they want to give it back or they want to support you.
Yeah.
And then you are, you're Innovate Media too, right? So it kind of comes back to that whole sphere, not just to you directly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, I wanted to mention one thing. One is, I just got your email that told me that you are launching a community, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because you started with courses, right?
Yeah.
Started with video content, then courses, and now you've launched a community. So talk about that progression a little bit and share what your community is about.
Sure, thanks Phil. So beginning of 2019, I launched a course which is specifically for video production companies or production company owners or agencies, because the big problem that I see out there is what we talked about before is, people are creating content. Video producers are skilled at creating beautiful content. Businesses are coming to them to create content, but if there's no conversation around video strategy happening, potentially they're creating the wrong content or it's not getting the results that they want. And the frustration I was getting time and time again from video producers that I was talking to was that they're creating great content for their clients and handing the finished video over to their clients, and then nothing was happening with that video.
And
it was
their
getting
fault.
it's just not returning on investment, so they look bad.
And they get less work.
They don't come back for more video.
Sure.
So the online video strategy blueprint course was specifically for that purpose, was to help video production companies understand video strategy. And so I've taken up a whole bunch of students through that course over the course of the last year.
Where can people find that course?
onlinevideostrategyblueprint.com.
Okay.
It's the place to go. If it's not open right now, there's a wait list there. If that fits you, then that's the place to go. But as a result of launching that course over the last year, I've had people who are not video producers, entrepreneurs, business owners, marketers, other types of businesses who are doing video themselves, or trying to do video themselves, maybe struggling with video themselves. They've been reaching out to me and saying, well, how can we learn that stuff too? So that's why the Engage Video Marketing Academy exists, is to help those people who are doing video themselves or trying to be more effective and get return on investment with the video that they're creating. And so it's a community.
And
it's
also
a membership.
for people who are creating it for their clients. So it's both? So it's kind of client side and agency side at the same time?
Yeah, so it's probably not suited if you are a video production company. You're going to get more value from the course, which is the Online Video Strategy Blueprint, because there's more specific things there about exactly. That's more specific to help you implement it for other people.
Okay.
So if you're basically, if you're trying to do this yourself and trying to, build a brand, build a business using video, and you're struggling or you're not sure if you're doing the right things to get return on investment and to move the right people to action, then the engagevideomarketingacademy.com is the place to go.
Everybody is offering video now. I mean, it used to be like YouTube, and then then it's expanded into almost every single platform. Facebook Live, obviously, YouTube Live, Instagram Stories, Instagram Live, Instagram TV. It just like goes on and on. Every single social platform is integrating video in one way or another into their platform. How do you know what is the best video platform for you as a personal brand or as a small agency creative professional to utilize? Because we can't be everywhere all the time, and it doesn't make any sense to spread yourself really thin. I always suggest that people, especially when they're just diving into video, to really pick a channel, go deep into it, and then expand from there. So do you have any recommendations for people in terms of which platform is appropriate to start for what kind of engagement?
I always use the analogy of fish where the fish are. So really understand your audience, as we talked about before, understand where they hang out.
Right. How do you find that out?
So do your research, So you guys talk about the idea of creating clear customer avatars. Marketers out there understand the value of really understanding who it is that you're talking to. But not just understanding demographics, but understanding like behavior profiles as well. So where do they hang out? Where do they consume content? Where do they go when they've got questions? And create content for that platform first. And I think the other side to that decision, because it is a decision, you need to decide as a creator where to put your attention, is understand where your audience hangs out, but also understand, based on your own ability or comfort creating content, where you're going to be most comfortable.
So it's about also your comfort level, like what's
I think that's
feel
critical,
good
right?
for you?
Because consistency and sustainability to a video strategy is where success lies. We talked about the long game before.
Right.
And if you commit to, like, you decide YouTube's where it's at, I mean, to be successful on YouTube, you need to be creating content of a certain level, right? It needs to have a certain production value. It doesn't need to be high production value, but more production value than an Instagram story, for example. You need to be able to commit to that, right? So if you're just starting out, maybe YouTube and a consistent posting schedule to a certain production level on YouTube is not the right way to go. So maybe it's better to start out using Facebook Live, for example, or just doing a few Instagram stories. You get comfortable seeing your face on camera. Right. So,
and it disappears, which is the best
exactly.
thing.
So understand that combination of where your audience is to get the most value and what you can do consistently to grow and improve. I think that's the best place to start.
Cool. Are there any recommendations that you would give people in terms of, I mean, what are you finding is what's trending? What's hot right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm big on LinkedIn video right now. I think LinkedIn
now,
as a video platform.
Don't you have to achieve a certain level of, I don't know, you have to hit some level before you can actually do like LinkedIn Live or
So LinkedIn Live
video?
currently is not rolled out to everyone.
Right.
So you have to apply.
Yeah.
And get access to it. You don't need a certain level, you just need to apply.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what their criteria is.
Yeah,
but
I don't know either.
I believe by the end of this year, 2020, everyone will have access to LinkedIn Live.
But you can just post videos. I mean, I
well,
post
exactly.
all my
That's what I'm
YouTube
talking
videos
about there. Is
yeah.
just native video on LinkedIn is getting a lot of attention right now. So I think particularly for professionals, for B2B, posting video on LinkedIn is where I'd be focusing right now.
The one thing that I've noticed and just also understood where I received traction is posting video on LinkedIn natively, number one, because when you can't post video that's over 10 minutes in length on LinkedIn for one thing. So some of my longer videos on YouTube I can't post on LinkedIn. The other thing is that I would say probably 80% of people who watch video on LinkedIn don't have the sound on.
True.
So they're watching it on mobile or they're in their office or something like that and they don't have the sound on. So having subtitles is really, really key. So going to Rev or who did we meet? Quick?
Yeah, so quick.io, QUICC. I talk about these guys a lot because it's basically a AI-based transcription. So you upload your video to their platform and it'll do a transcription, and then it'll burn the captions into your video.
Oh, in one step. That's nice.
Well, 2 steps. It's the transcription.
Right.
You can fix the transcription, which
Right.
is actually 99% accurate anyway.
Okay.
And then you can customize your fonts and your styling and
Yeah.
pick your colors of your captions and download the video with
Oh,
captions
that's
burnt
neat. You
in.
can choose like styling of your.
Yeah, that's the
see,
unique
that's
thing, I
sweet.
think,
That is
right,
unique.
yeah.
Because I've been using Rev, and you have to upload an SRT file with your video, right?
Yeah.
And then it marries them.
Yeah.
But sometimes the captions come in really tiny, or they're like a weird font, or they're,
Yeah.
So having any kind of design capability on there would be great. I have to check them out.
Yeah, it's very cool.
So what else do you have on your agenda for here at Social Media Marketing World? I know that you went to Pat Flynn's get together, and that's why Ben's voice doesn't usually sound like this.
Yeah.
He's a little froggy because he was yelling last night, talking to people over music
Loud
and
event
din.
last night, yeah.
So what else is on your agenda?
Man, I'm just stoked to like connect with a bunch of people like yourself who I only get to catch up with at these kinds of events, and obviously learn from a whole bunch of other experts as well. It's an awesome event. I'm excited to see the keynotes as well. There's some awesome keynotes. I think closing keynote, Marcus Sheridan. Don't know if you know Marcus Sheridan, but I love his philosophy of, they ask, you answer. So
Yes, right.
It's awesome stuff. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, ultimately I'm just excited to give value and receive value at the event.
And I have to congratulate you for landing this gig. It's a significant speaking gig, so congratulations.
Phil.
I know you're going to absolutely kill it. I will
I
be
hope
there.
my voice comes back by tomorrow.
There. And so where can people find you, Ben?
Yeah, so best place is engagevideomarketing.com. If you're interested in what we talked about before, the engagevideomarketingacademy.com is a place to go, or onlinevideostrategyblueprint.com if you're a video producer, or you call yourself a video producer, that's the place to go.
If you're wannabe, you gotta, it's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I really appreciate your coming on the Brand Muse interview series for YouTube and the Brand Design Masters podcast.
Thanks, Phil. Awesome to be here.